I arranged a first-class Europe tour for my parents. Then their airport bag revealed the truth. Business-class flights, 5-star hotels, guided tours, everything was set and fully paid for. But when I picked them up to drive them to the airport, they told me they'd chosen to travel with my unemployed sister instead of me. My mom smiled like she was delivering good news. "Your sister needed some rest, so we decided to take her." I didn't say anything. What they didn't know was that they had a very different kind of surprise waiting for them when they landed in Europe. "You're late," my mom added as she stepped out onto the porch, dragging her suitcase behind her. The early morning air was cold and still, the porch light casting a yellow glow over the front steps as her suitcase wheels bumped down one by one. I glanced at the digital clock on my dashboard. 6:02 a.m., 2 minutes late. 2 minutes, Mom, I said, forcing a small smile as I opened my door and stepped out. I walked around the car to grab her suitcase, still half in that half-dreamy state where I pictured us checking in at the lounge together. But then, I saw someone else step out of the front door. My sister. Lily walked down the steps with her own suitcase rolling behind her, phone in hand, hair neatly done despite the hour. She looked excited, not confused, not surprised, like this was always the plan. My smile died on my face. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady even as my stomach dropped. My mom turned toward me, her expression far too cheerful for what she was about to say. "Oh, Emma, we decided Lily should come instead of you," she said, in that light, casual tone she used when she didn't want a reaction. "She's been so stressed lately, and she really needs this trip." My chest tightened, a slow pressure creeping up under my ribs. "Instead of me?" I managed. "Mom, I've been planning this for years. I paid for everything." She waved her hand dismissively, like I had just reminded her of a small, boring detail. "And we're grateful, sweetheart," she said. "But you're always working so hard. You can take another trip later. Lily needs this right now." Lily didn't even pretend to look guilty. She shifted her weight onto one hip, that familiar little smirk appearing on her face. "Thanks for understanding, sis," she said, her tone dripping with fake gratitude. My heart pounded in my chest, loud enough that it almost drowned out the faint sounds of birds and a car passing down the street. A moment later, my dad shuffled out of the house. He pulled the door shut, adjusted his jacket, and walked over with his suitcase, eyes fixed somewhere near my feet. He handed me the handle without looking directly at me. "This is unbelievable," I said, my voice shaking. "This was supposed to be our trip, something for me to share with you." "It still is," my mom replied with a smile, "just with Lily instead." "Don't make this a big deal, Emma. Your sister really needs a break." My name is Emma, and for the past 2 years, I've been working overtime and saving every spare penny to give my parents a trip they would never forget. Flights, luxury hotels, guided tours across cities they'd only seen in movies. I picked every restaurant, every neighborhood, every experience with them in mind. But as I stood in their driveway, watching Lily lift her suitcase into the backseat of my car like she'd earned it, I realized something I'd been trying not to admit for years. It didn't matter how much effort I put in. In their eyes, Lily would always come first. I clenched my jaw, feeling a retort burning on my tongue. Something sharp, something honest. Instead, I swallowed it down and forced my face into something that looked like a neutral expression. I opened the trunk. "Let's get going then," I said, my voice flat. If they wanted to prioritize her over me, fine. They could go with her. But I wasn't going to let them enjoy it. The drive to the airport was suffocating. The car was filled with that heavy silence that sits on your shoulders, broken only by Lily's constant chatter. "Oh my goodness, Mom, did you see that video about Paris?" Lily said, leaning forward between the front seats. "I can't wait to go shopping there. Do you think we'll have time, or will the tours take up the whole day?" My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles slowly turning pale. The road ahead was mostly empty, streetlights stretching out like a path of small suns. My mom chuckled softly. "Of course we'll have time," she said. "We'll figure it out when we get there." When we get there. They didn't even notice that I wasn't part of that we anymore. I bit the inside of my cheek to stop myself from saying something I couldn't take back. At one point, my dad cleared his throat in the back seat. "Thank you for driving us, Emma," he said quietly. "I know this probably feels unusual." I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. He immediately looked away. "Unusual," I repeated. "That's an interesting way to put it, Dad." He shifted uncomfortably and stopped talking. Lily leaned forward again, her voice grating on my nerves. "You're not mad, right?" she asked. "I mean, this is really generous of you, letting me go. I could never afford something like this on my own." I felt my jaw tighten, my teeth pressing together. I forced a small, tight smile. "Of course, Lily," I said. "Enjoy the trip." By the time we pulled up to the airport drop-off zone, my patience was hanging by a thread. Cars lined up in front of us, doors opening and closing, luggage being dragged across the pavement. The cold air hit my face as I stepped out. I helped unload their suitcases, setting each one down beside the curb. My mom wrapped her arms around me briefly. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart," she said. "This means a lot to us, and to Lily." "Sure, Mom," I replied, my voice stiff. Lily beamed as she grabbed her suitcase handle. "Thanks, Emma. You're the best," she said, already turning toward the sliding glass doors. I stood there and watched as they disappeared into the crowd inside the terminal. Bright departure boards flickered overhead, announcing flights to the same cities I had memorized months ago while planning this trip. My chest felt tight, like all the air around me had thickened. Anger, hurt, disappointment, it all mixed into something heavy that settled in my stomach as I got back into my car. The ride home was a blur. The highway signs, the exits, the familiar turns, I barely noticed any of it. All I could hear in my head were their words. "Your sister needed this. You're always working so hard. You can take another trip later. This means a lot to Lily." When I finally pulled into my driveway, I shifted the car into park, but didn't move. I just sat there, fingers locked around the steering wheel, staring at the garage door. My knuckles turned white. Then, suddenly, it was like a switch flipped. I let go of the wheel, grabbed my bag, and marched into the house. I walked straight to the table where my laptop sat, flipped it open, and logged into the travel sites I'd been checking every day for months. Hotel reservation. Cancel. Are you sure? Yes. Tour bookings. Refund. Seat upgrades. Remove. One by one, I went through everything. Confirmation emails started arriving within seconds, stacking up in my inbox. Your reservation has been canceled. Your refund is being processed. Your upgrade has been removed. With every new email, the tightness in my chest eased just a little. They wanted to take Lily instead of me? Fine. But they were not going to stay in five-star hotels or enjoy private tours on my money. When I closed the laptop, a strange sense of calm settled over me. Not happiness, not exactly satisfaction, just a steady quiet in my head that hadn't been there before. They could explain themselves to the front desk staff in Paris. I was done being their doormat. The calls started as soon as their flight landed. My phone buzzed over and over on the dresser as I unpacked the suitcase I'd packed for myself. I took out the clothes I'd folded so carefully, hung them back in my closet, lined my shoes back on the shelf. The buzzing didn't stop. I sighed and finally picked up my phone. The screen lit up with missed calls and notifications. My mom's name, again and again. I unlocked the phone and opened her messages. "Emma, what's going on? The hotel won't let us check in. The reservation isn't there. Call me immediately. Emma, this isn't funny. Fix this, now." A short, humorless laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. Fix this. Of course, that was always my role. The phone buzzed again, this time with an incoming call from Lily. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. A new notification appeared and I tapped it. "Emma, this is so petty," she snapped, her voice sharp and annoyed. "We're stuck here because of you. You need to call the hotel and fix it now." I rolled my eyes and deleted the voicemail without listening to the rest. For years, I'd been their fixer, the one who handled every problem, smoothed over every mistake, and quietly picked up the pieces. Not anymore. The calls kept coming. My phone buzzed across the table, lighting up over and over. Eventually, I answered one of my mom's calls just to make it stop. "Emma, what did you do?" she demanded the second I said hello. Her voice was loud, angry, and sharp. "The hotel says the reservation was canceled and none of the tours are booked anymore." I let her unload for a few seconds, then said calmly, "I canceled them." Silence. A long, stunned pause. "Why would you do that?" she hissed. "Oh, I don't know," I said, letting the sarcasm seep into my voice. "Maybe because you decided to take Lily on my trip. You're lucky I even drove you to the airport." "We thought you'd understand," she snapped back. "Understand what?" I asked, my voice rising. "That years of saving and planning didn't matter because Lily needed a break? That my hard work meant nothing to you? Guess what, Mom? I don't understand, and I don't care to." I hung up before she could respond, then turned my phone off and tossed it onto the couch. The silence that followed was almost shocking. No buzzing, no ringing, no flashing screen. For the first time that day, I felt like I could actually breathe. If they wanted to prioritize Lily, fine, but they could figure out the rest of the trip without me. The silence lasted only a day. By the next morning, when I turned my phone on to check the time, it immediately started buzzing again with missed calls and messages. I set it face down and ignored it. I spent the day cleaning the house, wiping down counters, doing laundry, and catching up on work. I moved slowly, deliberately, letting the normal rhythm of my life steady me. Anytime I was tempted to look at my phone, I focused on something else: folding towels, washing dishes, organizing a drawer. Still, curiosity has a way of creeping in. By evening, I finally picked up my phone and unlocked it. The screen flooded with notifications. From my mom. "Emma, you've gone too far. Your sister is in tears and your father is furious. We can't get into any of the hotels you booked. Call me. This isn't right. Just fix it." From Lily. "You're acting like a child. I don't get why you're making this such a big deal. You're ruining everything. Just fix it already." And from my dad. "We need to talk. This isn't right." I set the phone down and shook my head slowly. For years, I'd been the one who made everything easier, the one who made sure everyone else was comfortable and happy, the one who organized, paid, and stayed quiet. Now that I'd stepped back, they didn't know what to do. I poured myself a cup of tea, the steam curling up into the quiet kitchen, and sat down at the table. My anger wasn't loud and explosive anymore. It was low, steady, simmering under the surface. How dare they expect me to clean up their mess? How dare they act like I was the one in the wrong? A few minutes later, my phone started buzzing again. Another call from my mom. This time, I answered. "Emma," she barked before I could say anything, "this isn't funny anymore. We're stranded. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" I took a slow sip of tea, letting the warmth sit in my chest. "Embarrassing," I repeated. "You think this is embarrassing? Try saving for years, planning every detail, and then being told you're not even part of the trip you paid for. Stop being dramatic," she snapped. "Lily needed this more than you. And now she can figure it out," I said firmly. "You made your decision, Mom. You wanted to take Lily instead of me. Fine. But don't expect me to fund her vacation." "We're family," she hissed. "We don't do this to each other." A bitter laugh escaped me. Sincere confession. "Funny," I said quietly. "I was just thinking the same thing." In the background, I heard Lily's voice, high and annoyed. "Mom, just hang up on her. She's being impossible." That was the final straw. "Enjoy your trip," I said, my tone icy. "Oh, wait, you can't, because it's not your trip. It was mine, and now it's nobody's. Goodbye." I hung up before she could respond and turned my phone off again. For the rest of the evening, I felt an odd mix of anger and relief. Anger that they had put me in this position. Relief that, for once, I hadn't backed down. They could call me dramatic all they wanted. For the first time in my life, I wasn't letting them take advantage of me. The next few days were blissfully quiet. With my phone off, the house felt strangely peaceful. No buzzing, no notifications, no demands, just the sound of the wind outside, distant cars, and the occasional creak of the floorboards. In the mornings, I sat on my back porch with a mug of coffee, watching the sky slowly grow brighter and listening to birds in the trees. It was the kind of calm I'd been craving for a long time, without realizing how badly I needed it. My afternoons were filled with work and small projects I had been putting off, straightening shelves, going through old paperwork, fixing the loose kitchen drawer that had annoyed me for months. Little things, but they reminded me that when I wasn't trying to manage everyone else's emotions, I was capable of handling my own life just fine. By the third day, though, curiosity started to tug at me again. I picked up my phone from where it had been sitting, untouched, on the counter. I hesitated for a moment, then turned it on. Within seconds, the notifications started pouring in. The screen lit up with icons and alerts, voicemails, texts, missed calls. There were over a dozen voicemails waiting. The first few were from my mom, her voice growing more frantic and emotional with each message. "Emma, you need to call me back right now. This has gone too far. I can't believe you're doing this. You've humiliated us. We're your parents. How could you treat us this way?" Then came Lily's messages, filled with that same entitled tone she always used when things didn't go her way. "This is so petty even for you. You're ruining everything. Just fix it, Emma." Finally, there were a couple from my dad. His voice was quieter, but the words still stung. "Emma, I don't understand what's happened to you. Call us back so we can sort this out." I stared at the list for a moment before tapping on the last voicemail from my mom. It was longer than the others, and when I pressed play, her voice sounded different, softer, tired, frustrated. "Emma," she began, her voice quieter this time, tinged with frustration. "And exhausted," my mom's voice said in the last voicemail. "Emma, we're back at the airport now. The trip is ruined, and I hope you're happy with yourself. Your sister is devastated, and your father and I are, well, disappointed doesn't even begin to cover it. Call us when you're ready to talk." I deleted the voicemails without replying. I wasn't ready to talk. Honestly, I didn't know if I ever would be. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't just about one trip. It was the result of years of them putting Lily first and expecting me to smile through it. As the hours passed, my mind drifted back through all the times I'd been pushed to the side. Every holiday where Lily's moods decided what we did, every family gathering where my accomplishments were brushed over in a sentence, while hers were celebrated like some big miracle. This trip was just the breaking point. The cracks had been forming for a long time. That evening, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, my friend Megan stood there holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing an expression that said she already knew everything. "I heard about what happened," she said, stepping inside and setting the cups on the table. "Your mom called me yesterday." Of course she had. My mom was always good at recruiting backup when she wanted to guilt me into falling back in line. "And what did you tell her?" I asked, picking up one of the cups. Megan shrugged, a small, sly smile tugging at her lips. "I told her you were probably busy and would get back to her when you were ready." I laughed, shaking my head. "You're the best." "No, you're the best," she replied, her tone turning serious. "Because you finally stood up for yourself. I know how hard that is, Emma. Don't let them drag you back down." Her words lingered long after she left. She was right. I had spent too long bending over backward for people who didn't really value what I did. It was time to break that habit for good. By the time the weekend rolled around, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The anger was still there, simmering quietly under the surface, but it was joined by something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. Freedom from their endless expectations. Freedom from being the one who fixed everything. Freedom to live my life on my own terms. But of course, the silence didn't last. It was Sunday afternoon when I finally answered a call. This time it was from my dad. "Emma," he began, his voice heavy and tired. "Your mom wanted me to call. She thinks you'll listen to me." "Go on," I said, leaning back in my chair. He let out a long sigh. "Look, this has all gotten out of hand. Your mom's upset, Lily's furious, and, well, it's just a mess. But you're better than this." I stiffened, irritation flaring again. Better than what, Dad? I asked, standing up for myself, refusing to let you walk all over me again. That's not what I meant, he said quickly. It's just, you've always been the reasonable one, the one who keeps everything together. This isn't like you. A short, bitter laugh escaped me. You're right, I said. It's not like me, because I'm not bending over backward to clean up your mess anymore. He went quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe he was finally starting to see my side. Then he said, You're punishing the whole family over one decision. Is that really fair? Fair, I repeated, my voice rising. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you and Mom decided I wasn't important enough to go on the trip I planned? Was it fair when you replaced me with Lily like I didn't matter? That's not what we were trying to do, he said defensively. We just thought Lily needed it more. Of course you did, I snapped. You always think she needs more. More attention, more support, more everything. And I'm always the one expected to sacrifice for her. Not anymore. The silence on the other end was heavy. Finally, he said quietly, I don't know what you want me to say. I don't need you to say anything, I replied, my voice steady. I just need you to understand that I'm done being the afterthought. From now on, I come first. Goodbye, Dad. I ended the call and placed the phone on the table. My hands were trembling slightly. For the rest of the day, I let myself feel everything. Anger, sadness, relief. It wasn't easy, but it felt like the beginning of something new. I wasn't the family fixer anymore, and I wasn't going to be. They could figure out how to clean up their own messes. When my parents and Lily finally came back from their disaster trip, I was waiting for them at their house. I'd parked in their driveway and was sitting on the porch swing, sipping a cup of coffee, surprisingly calm. Their taxi pulled up and I watched as they climbed out, dragging their suitcases behind them. Their faces were a mix of exhaustion and irritation. Lily spoke first. Well, I hope you're happy, Emma. I raised an eyebrow but stayed seated. Happy about what? Our trip was a disaster, my mom snapped, waving her hand like she wanted to erase the whole week. We spent the entire time staying in dingy hotels and eating terrible food because we couldn't afford anything decent, and don't even get me started on the tours. Lily crossed her arms. Yeah. Oh, wait, that's right. There weren't any. Do you know how embarrassing it was to show up and be told there was no reservation? I took another slow sip of coffee, letting their complaints roll over me. Sounds rough, I said calmly. But you're the ones who wanted to take Lily, remember? I'm sure you all had some great bonding time. That's not the point, my mom shot back, her voice rising. You knew we couldn't afford all the things you'd planned. You set us up to fail. I stood, setting my mug down on the small table next to the swing. No, Mom, I said, looking her straight in the eye. I didn't set you up for anything. I planned a trip for the three of us, something special I'd been saving for years. You're the ones who decided to cut me out at the last second. My dad finally spoke, his tone quieter but still accusing. You didn't have to cancel everything, Emma. That was extreme. Was it? I asked, folding my arms. Why should I pay for a trip I wasn't even invited to? If Lily needed it so badly, you should have planned it yourselves. You're lucky I didn't cancel the return flight. Lily rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. It's just money, Emma. And you're so entitled, I shot back, my patience finally snapping. Do you have any idea how much work and sacrifice went into planning that trip? Or do you just assume things magically appear for you because someone else takes care of it? They all stood there, caught off guard, stunned into silence. I've spent years being the responsible one, I continued, my voice steady but firm. The one who fixes things, plans things, makes sure everything runs smoothly. And you've spent just as long taking it all for granted. That's not fair, my mom started, but I held up a hand. No, Mom. What's not fair is how you treated me. You chose Lily over me, like always, so I chose to stop being your doormat. You didn't want me on the trip? Fine. But you don't get to enjoy the benefits of my hard work without me. I grabbed my bag from the porch swing and turned toward my car. "I'm glad you got back safely," I said, "but don't expect things to go back to how they were. I'm done." As I walked down the driveway, I heard their voices behind me, a mix of anger, guilt, and shock, but I didn't look back. The drive home from my parents' house felt strangely peaceful. For years, every visit had left me drained and upset. This time, I felt lighter. I had finally said everything I'd been holding inside, and for once, I wasn't worrying about how they would react. When I got home, I made myself a cup of tea and sat on the couch, replaying the confrontation in my mind. They had been so certain I'd cave, like always, so sure they could push just enough to make me fold. But I hadn't. They could be angry. They could be hurt. They could be embarrassed. It didn't matter anymore. I was done living my life to meet their expectations. The next day, Megan called. "How'd it go?" she asked, skipping any small talk. I laughed, leaning back against the kitchen counter. "Exactly how you'd imagine. They're furious. Lily's pouting, and Mom is probably already planning how to guilt me back into place." Megan let out a short laugh. "Let her try. You've got a backbone now, and I'm here to make sure it stays." I smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude. "Thanks, Megan. I mean it. You've been my rock through all of this." "Anytime," she said, her voice softening. "So, what's next for you now that you're not the family fixer anymore?" That question had been circling in my mind since the confrontation. What was next? For so long, most of my energy had gone into trying to please my family, trying to earn approval that never really came. Now that I'd let go of that, the future felt wide open and a little intimidating. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I feel like I finally get to decide. Not them, not anyone else, just me." "Sounds like the start of something amazing," Megan said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Over the next few weeks, I started making small changes that felt big in their own way. I redecorated my living room, replacing the old hand-me-down furniture from my parents with pieces that actually felt like mine. I spent weekends exploring local cafes and parks, things I'd always said I would do someday, but never actually made time for. I started journaling, too. At first, it was just scattered thoughts, but it slowly turned into something more intentional. I wrote down what I wanted from my life without filtering it through what would make anyone else proud or comfortable. Each entry felt like reclaiming a part of myself I'd slowly given away. One evening, I sat down at my desk and opened the old spreadsheet I'd used to plan the Europe trip. The canceled reservations stared back at me. Instead of regret, I felt something else. Determination. That money had been meant for a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I wasn't going to let it quietly disappear into my savings account like none of this had ever happened. I closed the spreadsheet and opened a new browser tab, Solo Travel Ideas. A few weeks after my parents returned home, I booked a solo trip to Italy. It wasn't the same itinerary I'd planned for them, and it wasn't about proving anything to anyone anymore. This one was just for me. A chance to celebrate my independence and finally put myself first. The moment I landed in Rome, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement humming through me. I'd never traveled alone before, but as I stepped out of the airport into the warm, bustling city, I knew I'd made the right decision. My days were filled with wandering cobblestone streets, staring up at old buildings and ruins I'd only ever seen in pictures. I sat at small cafes, lingering over meals without checking my phone every 5 minutes. There was no schedule except the one I set for myself. No one else to consider, just me. One afternoon, I sat on the Spanish steps with a gelato in my hand, the sun warming my shoulders. I pulled out the journal I'd brought with me. For years, everything I'd written had somehow tied back to someone else, making my parents proud, taking care of my sister, proving I was good enough. This time, as my pen moved across the page, the focus shifted. Learn a new language, start a small business, travel to at least 5 more countries. The list kept growing, each goal a reflection of the life I wanted to build for myself, not the life I'd been expected to live. On my last night in Florence, I had dinner at a small, family-run restaurant overlooking the Arno River. The sky turned shades of orange and pink as the sun went down, and the city lights slowly flickered on. As I watched the sunset paint the water, I felt a deep sense of peace settle over me. This trip was more than a vacation. It was a turning point. I'd spent so much of my life trying to earn my family's approval, measuring my worth by how useful I was to them. But sitting there, thousands of miles away from home, I realized something important. I didn't need their approval. I was enough, just as I was. When I returned home, my parents tried to reach out again. This time the messages were softer, more carefully worded. "Hope you had a nice trip. Maybe we can all talk soon." I stared at one of my mom's texts, then set my phone down. I wasn't ready to reply, and that was okay. This time, it would be on my terms. As I unpacked my suitcase and placed little souvenirs on my shelves, postcards, a small ceramic dish, a bracelet from a street market, I felt a quiet sense of pride. I had done this for myself. About a week after I got back, my mom called. I let it ring twice, then answered. "Hi, Emma," she said, her tone unusually soft. "How was your trip?" "It was amazing," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "That's good to hear," she said, pausing as if she was searching for the right words. "We've been thinking a lot about what happened. Maybe we handled things poorly." The honesty surprised me, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook that easily. "Poorly," I said. "You replaced me on a trip I planned and paid for without even asking me. Poorly is an understatement." "I know," she said quietly. "Your dad and we didn't realize how much it would hurt you." "And Lily?" I asked. "Does she feel bad, or is she still blaming me for ruining her vacation?" "She's upset," my mom admitted, "but I think she knows she could have handled things better too." I sighed, leaning against the counter. "Mom, this wasn't just about the trip," I said. "It's about years of you putting her first and expecting me to pick up the slack. I'm not doing that anymore." "I understand," she said after a moment. "We're going to try to do better. We don't want to lose you." Her words tugged at something deep inside me, but I had learned not to let guilt take control. "I'm glad to hear that," I said, "but it's going to take more than words to fix this. I need to see real effort, not just apologies." "You will," she promised. "We'll give you the space you need, but I hope you'll let us back in someday." After the call, I felt a swirl of emotions. Relief that they were finally acknowledging what they'd done, and doubt about whether they would actually change. But that night, as I sat with my journal again, another realization settled in. Whether they changed or not wasn't my responsibility. In the months that followed, I kept my boundaries firm. I answered their calls and messages only when I felt like I could do it without slipping back into old patterns. I didn't rush to fix things. I didn't smooth over every awkward moment. Instead, I put my energy into building the life I wanted. I signed up for a photography class I'd always been curious about but never had time for. I joined a local hiking group and started planning my next solo trip. Each small step felt like reclaiming another part of myself. One evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, I realized how far I'd come. I wasn't the person who bent over backward for people who didn't appreciate it anymore. I was someone who valued herself, someone who set boundaries, someone who wasn't afraid to stand up for what she deserved. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free.